Hey Greeley, it is National Emergency Management Awareness Month, and so today we're here with Peter Perez. He is the director of the Office of Emergency Management. Welcome, Peter. How are
Yeah,
you
hi.
doing?
No, I'm doing great. Temperatures are definitely coming down. We're getting out of those 100-degree temperatures, which is nice, and we're getting a little bit of rain. So I think we're gonna have a really nice weekend.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you here. So, I think when people think about emergency management, they probably imagine police or fire. But what does the Office of Emergency Management actually do for Greeley?
No, that's a great question because we often do get calls about police or fire to our office, and totally get it. The name emergency management kind of sort of assumes that we are in charge of those departments, but in reality, we are three separate departments: police, fire, and the Office of Emergency Management. And so our role really is the holistic view of the disaster cycle, which is the preparedness, response, and the recovery phases. And so if you think about preparedness, we are in charge of 27 plans for the city of Greeley for us to be better prepared. So how we would respond to, say, maybe a tornado, or how we would set up our shelters or our mass feeding protocols. Those are the types of things that we prepare for. The other thing we do is we go out into the community and we do community outreach presentations so that individuals can be better prepared at home. The response side of that would be if something were to happen, we coordinate all of the city's departments in that response inside town. And then we also coordinate with a lot of our partners that we have, our nonprofits that we would bring in to assist folks. And then during the recovery phase, say if infrastructure is damaged, we kind of coordinate trying to get funding from either state or federal governments, or getting assistance from a lot of our nonprofits to build some of that infrastructure back and make sure our community members are assisted as well.
Awesome. Well, emergency management is one of those things that people don't really think about until they actually need it. So, why is it important to plan for events before they even happen?
Yeah, so we're almost basically like the city's insurance plan is kind of how you can think of it. So because of all the work we do in preparing for some sort of incident, we help minimize the damage or the impact of it happening, which then also means that when it happens, there's less cost expensed in responding and recovering from that. And so, just like your insurance policy, you can't have a car insurance policy after you get a car wreck. It's not going to cover that. So you always want to make sure that you're in effect before the disaster happens, because there's preparedness work that has to happen to get ready for that. And then once the impact happens, then we come in and we kind of also evaluate ourselves. How good of a job did we do? How do we need to improve next time? So all of that are things that our office focuses on.
Clearly, emergency management cannot just be done by one person. Who are your collaborators and supporters that help you all with this work?
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of folks. Obviously, every city single department assists us in our role, and we coordinate with them in a lot of the responsibilities they have, from planning and zoning and community development all the way into wildfire preparedness with our fire department. And so we also work with community organizations and nonprofits. So people that might be remembered from the 2024 storm are like Red Cross, Salvation Army, our Southern Baptist folks, and then even Serve 6.8 is a large nonprofit here in the northern Colorado area that we coordinate with, so that if something were to happen, those organizations can come in and help us with the response and help our community members get back on their feet.
Well, in honor of National Emergency Management Awareness Month, what preparedness tips do you practice yourself that you would recommend residents do too?
Ooh, so I'm going to give folks two. It's always the top two that I recommend. The first one has to kind of do with receiving information. So you always want to make sure, whether you live here in Greeley, you're just visiting, or even if you vacation outside of the Greeley area, that you are getting information that is trusted and accurate directly from the source. And so here in the city, we do a really good job of sharing our information on social media channels, so the folks can go and follow those channels to get information. You can also sign up online for our newsletters if you'd like to also get information. Emergency notifications, specifically here in Weld County, we utilize the Code Red Emergency notification system. And so that comes in the form of either an app you can download on your smartphone, or you can also go online and sign up for an account so you can get more localized and specific alerts. You can even sign up for specific weather alerts through there. And all of that is free to all of our community members to utilize. The second tip that I would probably give folks is, a lot of people think that being prepared is a large, overwhelming task. It's a lot to do. So rather than trying to accomplish it in a day, a weekend, or a month, try to just do one thing a month over a course of a year. And by the end of the year, you've now done 12 different action items where you're more prepared than you were the year before. A good example I give folks is when you go shopping, maybe grab an extra couple of cans of green beans or beans that you're going to be able to put in the pantry in case, the electricity goes out, so that you have some sort of food that isn't relying on the fridge. You could also do the same thing with maybe just buying an extra gallon of water to store at home. The other part about it being food related and preservable food like that is that's something you can rotate in your family's food stock pretty easily without it spoiling or going bad. Another example is like either batteries or things of that sort that you could kind of buy an extra 1 month and just use throughout the year and then replenish so that you're more prepared. Again, it's all about just taking the giant elephant of being prepared and cutting it into smaller bites for you to do over the course of the year.
Well, we have one more question for you, Peter. So I have 2 potential scenarios here, and I'd like you to pick one and read it and tell us how you would plan to respond to it.
Okay. All right, so sounds like a fun one. So a giant meatball crashes into downtown Greeley during Friday Fest. It's lunchtime and I'm hungry now, and so this sounds like a fun one to think of. So if you think about emergency management from the start of an incident to the end, at the beginning we're going to be very much focused on life safety. So police, fire, EMS, and public works, we would coordinate them coming down into the area. They'd probably cordon off the area to stop anybody else from getting into the dangerous areas. They'd also go through and make sure everybody's okay in the impacted area, right? We had a giant meatball, probably some spaghetti noodles and sauce fall from the sky. We want to make sure everybody's okay down there. And then we go into incident stabilization and environmental protections. So for this part, Public Works and even our Culture Parks Recreation Department would really come into play. CPRD, they have arborists who take care of our trees in town. So I could see us needing their chainsaws to come out and help cut apart the giant meatball. This would be a perfect time to basically have a giant community picnic downtown. We'd set up some tables down the middle of the street, cut up the meatball, serve everything up on a platter, divvy it up for folks to sit there and eat. And then the environmental protection side is obviously we don't want any of that getting into our storm drainage system and then into the Poudre River. Spaghetti and meatballs is good for humans, probably bad for fish. And so covering our storm drains and just making sure that we're setting up the necessary containment units to keep that from spreading and going anywhere else would be important. Next, we kind of look at recovery, especially for our individual community members. So we might have a house that was impacted and maybe their garage is full of marinara sauce. So we'd bring in folks like Red Cross or Salvation Army who could help kind of clean that up. Maybe we can the marinara sauce and give that away for folks to use later on. But either way, it helps clean that person's house very quickly. You can kind of relate it to mudslides in Colorado, where we would muck out a basement and get all of that debris out of there so that they can start using that living space again. And so I know it's kind of funny to think about, but that's basically the process emergency management goes in the middle of an incident is basically that life safety, incident stabilization, environmental preservation, and then how do we get the community to recover so they're able to go back to their lives the way it was before the incident happened.
Well, thank you so much, Peter, for being here today. If you would like to learn more about emergency management, you can visit greeleyco.gov.